Hi, I'm Drew.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome to Drewling Samantics.
Hello, mate. How you doing?
Sam, hello, buddy. How you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you, buddy. And Drew,
Good.
I can't believe it's that time again. Where has the season gone?
I know, mate. I mean, it doesn't feel that long since we were going back over the best bits of season 6. And here we are, about to get our favourite moments of season 7.
Yeah, and I have to say, mate, I've got a bit of an Inception thing going on here, because for me, this highlights episode is one of the highlights of the season.
Now, don't get yourself all confused, mate. Just reflect on the great time we had with all our amazing guests. And we were certainly sport for choice, for talent, yet again, over these past 13 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Our first guest of season 7 was a very good mate to both of us, Mr. Will Gilham, an extremely talented actor who has more recently turned his hand to headshot photography.
Indeed. And then followed our secret weapon, the third member of the Drewling Samantics team, our brilliant illustrator, Mr. Nick Bannister. Yeah, affectionately known as Picnic, for obvious reasons. And we allowed him away from his pens and pencils, just temporarily, for an appearance on the show.
Yeah, we did indeed. He was swiftly followed by the lovely Claire Harding, who's an actor, writer, biographer, and even at times has been the Mrs. Claus to your Santa.
You're not wrong, mate. Yeah. Now, Mrs. Christmas was followed by someone who can only be described as an endless ball of energy. Yes, our fourth guest of season 7 was the hilarious and immensely talented Reis Daniel. Yes. Now, only he could run an agency so efficiently while being fully immersed and working full-time in the business himself.
Well, yeah, he's quite the enigma, and safe to say a crazy one at that. Tom Neal was next up, an insanely gifted musician, as well as being a fantastic actor.
And finally, we had the wonderfully versatile Richard Stride, who has had such a varied career. He had an endless stream of stories to tell, each one different to the next, but all equally entertaining.
Yeah, a collection of performers exceptional enough to whet anyone's appetite.
And Sam, the good news is those appetites can easily be satisfied. So why don't we do just that? Ladies, gentlemen, fans, followers, subscribers, please join us for our favourite moments of season 7.
Cheers.
Cheers.
When I was born, apparently, I came out and looked straight towards the light, so everyone knew I was going to be an actor. But yes, no, I sort of fell into acting at a later stage, probably when I was about 14, 15. Did the old thing of going to a local theatre group and all of that. Then went on to drama school, which I absolutely adored and loved. That was at the Academy of Live Recorded Arts, which unfortunately is now closed, but it was an amazing experience. Absolutely brilliant. Loved every moment. And then came out of there. And my first job was working on a big Hollywood film. I was doing sword fighting and various other bits and pieces on it, and had a cough and a spit, and got to work with Sean Connery, Julia Ormond, and Richard Gere, which was a baptism of fire, somewhat.
Just a bit, yeah.
Yeah, just a bit, yeah. And then went off and did some TIE, some theatre and education, which again was brilliant because it taught me a lot about, particularly when you've got a young audience, is that they don't lie. You know, if you went to various big theatres and you go and see various shows, etc., the audience will always clap at the end. Children don't. If they don't like it, I'm bored.
I think one of the big mistakes that a lot of photographers can make, and they see an actor and they think they're perfectly fine in front of a camera. They're not going to be nervous. They want to do tons of poses, and they're really confident in front of me, you know, shoving this camera in their face. That's very rarely the case. It's very rarely the case. You know, when people come in for headshot sessions, you can guarantee the first 100 shots or so, everyone's going to look a bit like a rabbit in headlights. Just kind of, you know, if they're trying to smile, they'll kind of do the Chun Bing thing in Friends, for example, kind of the kind of look. But yeah, no, it's it's something where you can speak to another actor and say, I've gone through plenty of headshot sessions myself. This is what really helped me. Try this out. And it's about and you can connect to them. You can ask them, if you're asking them about their work, you've done that work as well. So you can you just have that connection immediately. So it's a much nicer environment, I'd say.
Who am I? Who is Reis Daniel? I'm your sister's favourite comedian. I'm your nephew's favourite actor, and I'm your mum's favourite role model. So yeah, I'm that guy. I'm an actor, comedian, and I run an agency, Freezer Crowd Management, who represents actors across TV, film, and theatre. And I am a father of 1, 2 fur babies as well. I've got a missus who still wants to have sex with me, and I'm living a dream.
Oh, mate.
That has to be one of the best intros we've ever had, mate. I mean, that was... so, ladies and gentlemen, that was Reis Daniel. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you. Good night.
Do you think it's becoming more common / more popular now, actor muso work? I think it's something that perhaps a lot of our listeners and watchers may not be completely familiar with, because if you were to look at the big exponents of theatre like the West End and national tours, actor muso work is probably not as common. We had a good friend of mine, Harry Boyd, on the show a few months back. He is an actor muso, and he was in Buddy, I think, Drew? I can't remember what he said, but certainly he was actor muso in that. But it was one of very few shows at the time, and probably these days that feature on such a large scale, shall we say. But would you say, Tom, that the work is sort of starting to appear a bit more in that vein and it's becoming more popular?
In the West End?
I mean, in general, just to become more common for perhaps the average Joe, the member of the public, to be more familiar with it. Because us in the industry, we hear about it a lot, but it tends to be much smaller scale or fringe venues where you see these sorts of things.
Yeah. I think there's some places do it really well, like the Watermill, and they transfer to the West End. The Watermill in Newbury, they use acting musicians a lot, and their work transfers into London. You see it a lot in outdoor Shakespeare. It's very popular there, and actually, if you think about it, it's a really old idea.
Yeah.
The travelling troubadour.
Yeah.
From the medieval mystery plays in this country, but also in France in the medieval period, you'd have itinerant musicians and actors who would travel around and play the play and play the music as well. Yeah.
I mean, I suppose we after the unwelcome guest and lockdown, etc. Theatre, you see it now, and you look at what is casting and what is being produced. Casts out of necessity, budget wise, are being they're being cut down. So you are looking at actors that are triple threat, that they can sing, they can dance, they can act, and now can they play an instrument as well? So they've got that quadruple thing out of necessity. But I do also think, like you say, Tom, that there is something in seeing actors that you don't necessarily know play an instrument suddenly pick something up and accompany themselves or add something else to a script. I think there's something really, I don't know, it seems to add another dimension that isn't otherwise there. It's almost preferable to listening to a pit orchestra or as you say, a backing track or a click track. I think there's something more exciting about it.
Absolutely. I think so. Yeah.
I was trying to get digs down in Worthing, and I rang a lady, and she said, "Oh, you can't stay here. I've got Jack Wilde staying here." And I thought, "Oh, okay." And I said, "I'm really sorry, but there's nowhere else." And so and she said, "Well, you'll have to be very quiet. You'll have to walk very quietly past his room. Don't come down to breakfast at the same time as him." And I was like, "Oh, fine, you crazy woman." And I thought, "Oh, Jack must be an arse. If he insists on this treatment, he must be an absolute arse." But I'll stay. I did. I used to creep past his room, get down to breakfast really early. And the first time he came in and I was in the kitchen and he opened the door and I was like, oh God, I'm in the kitchen and he's come and I shouldn't be here. And he went, hello, how are you? I thought, oh, you're lovely. And that was it. He had no ego. That was something which I think is interesting about a profession, something someone had put on him. You know, you've got to treat him in this way. That was not Jack at all. He was what you saw. He was so easygoing, so nice, so embraced the world. Embraced the world too much, probably, which when he had his drinking career for a good few years. Yeah, I forgot what the question was, Drew. Where was I going?
No, just like because then obviously, you know, we know Jack, you know, he had this wonderful career, a very colourful life. But then I think you helped him or you worked with him on A Dodger's Life, his autobiography.
Yeah, he'd started writing that. Well, coming out of therapy, actually. I think often they say it's helpful to coming out of AA. It's helpful to write this down. And he'd written, and so he'd written many chapters. And funnily enough, he said to me, "Would you like to read my chapters?" It's like, "You can come up and see my etchings." And they were just not him. They were just, let me think what a book would sound like. And I said, "I just feel it's lost you. I think we want to know you." For me, when I read a biography or autobiography, I want to feel I hear them.
Hear the voice.
The ghostwriter on top. So I said, well, because from that moment that when he popped his head around the kitchen door and said, "Can I have a coffee?" We were together till he died. Literally constantly. Slightly crazy. But I said, let's start again with the book and I'll record you. So I just interviewed him saying, well, tell me about this, tell me about that, to keep his natural voice in it. So some of the recording, you get him saying, he'll do 20 minutes, and then he go, "No, fuck it, that's a lie. Sorry, let me try again."
Brilliant.
Oh, wonderful.
One thing that I was particularly lacking at the time and I loved was Shakespeare. And so I decided in 1999, I think it was, to start up a theatre group and do some Shakespeare. So we did a Shakespeare festival, put on loads of Shakespeares, etc. I was in 2 of the Shakespeare productions. One was Othello and one was Twelfth Night. And that was the birth of my theatre, if you like, Groundlings Theatre. So we started that, and that was really going to be a one-off. That was just going to be one thing, and then it was so popular and did so well that I felt obliged to carry it on. So then there was another Shakespeare season and another, and so forth. And then we had a drama training course as well for young actors and older actors as well. And then eventually I bought an old burnt-out wreck of a building, which... most people were saying, "Richard, you've never even decorated your bedroom, let alone rebuild a theatre from the ashes," literally from the ashes. I mean, it had absolutely nothing in it. Nothing worked. Walls were falling down. I fell through 2 floors at one point. I threw off my shoes at one point and they went straight through the wallpaper down the cavity. And it was just, we had a tree growing out the side of it. It was just madness, utter madness to do this. I spent about 380,000, I think it was, on doing the building up. And this was all in the middle of a financial crash as well. So it was great timing. And everyone just kept saying, "This is impossible. You're going to lose loads of money. It's a bad idea." I didn't have one person that said this was a good idea, but I managed to pull it together somehow and turn it into a successful theatre. And I think one of the things that made it work so well was actually I did a lot of research for about 1.5 years. Thank God for the internet. And though I'd never run a theatre before, it's amazing what you can learn off the internet. And I looked at best practices of theatres, most successful theatres. I just Googled a lot. And there was one thing that I started to realise from all my 1.5 years of research is that people had stopped going to the theatre, not because of television, which is what I think everybody thought was the reason. Yes, it did have an impact, but actually people stopped go. It started to drift off going before television really got a hold, and that it was more in most people's households. And what had lacked from theatre was socialisation, if you like. People used to go to the theatre an hour before the show. They used to stay an hour after the show, and it's that community feel. So what I did is I basically took the idea of taking out all the rows and put round tables in, so that the interesting thing is normally if you go to the theatre, the only thing you're ever going to say to anyone next to you is, "Excuse me, I need the loo," and that's it. Whereas now people are facing each other on a round table, and the first thing they do is they introduce themselves, and then they have nothing in common except for the fact that they're at the theatre. So guess what? They start talking about the theatre. And so they become your sales team, if you like, your marketing team. And then basically people started to come earlier. They started to stay later, buy more drinks at the bar, blah, 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 blah. And our ticket sales just rocketed. They went up every single year.
What can you discuss, or have you been hit with I must not say nothing
I
orders?
don't think so. I think I've been given a little bit of freedom. The actors that are in the series that I'm going to do, they're all posting it all over Netflix, all over Instagram, and they're all sharing videos. So I'm about to go to do a Netflix series set in the 1300s. It's a dark comedy, and I'm playing a little scallywag that likes to go to brothels, get in fights, drink and eat. So I'm playing myself, method acting at its finest. So I said to my missus, I was like, look, I really need to get into this role. So I'm going to go down a few brothels and see what happens. She hit me over the head and gave me syphilis instead. So we're good. We're good.
Welcome to the 1300s.
Yeah.
That's one way of getting
I've been quite blessed. I'm going to be honest with you, and I don't. My luck has really changed over the past year or so. Like, I've been slogging in this industry for 10, 15 years, and I was ripped. I was fit. I was training every day. I dedicated my life to it, and I was working consistently, but with jobs that weren't taking me any further. There was just, I say they're like the limbo jobs, the jobs that no one really gives a shit. But I was doing a lot of them. So I thought I was the shit, but really in the eyes of the industry, I was still relatively no one. And I think that until I had a midlife crisis, I had a breakdown, I stopped working out as much, I put on a load of weight, I started drinking a load of alcohol. The industry went, now we want you. That's what we were looking for. A fucking mess.
We need a big pissed black guy. Who are we going to get?
Yeah, you know what? You look like you don't get your hair cut. I love it. I love it. You're a scumbag. You're going to fit right in.
There's a big difference between fine art photography, where you've got, where you're going to be using Photoshop to effectively literally change a person's structure. Effectively, you're going to, some people might want slimmer waist. They might want a more kind of structured jaw. And you can do that with Photoshop. You can literally manipulate the image and alter it that way. With headshots, it's not about that at all. It's about getting the pose right so that that person is reflected into your camera lens immediately. That's the main thing. You can't get someone, you just can't get a mugshot where they don't look anything like they're going to look like if they go in through a casting door. You need to get that person in the lens, and that's the most key thing. And then in terms of editing their face, really, in terms of headshots, it's not that much. It's not that much. You don't want to make it kind of look like a comic book. I don't know. You don't want to make it look pop art or anything like that at all. It's about making it, just enhancing their image, enhancing it, maybe enhancing the eyes, making those stand out a lot more. That's the key thing in a headshot image. Is they want to look directly into the eyes, because that's the soul of the actor. But the key thing is that the actor going into a headshot session has to understand that they might see a different image of themselves to what is actually physically captured. And most people completely understand that, but there are some people, who just, they hate that idea. They hate what they look like. in a photo. But it's about approaching that in a kind way, in a kind of reassuring way, and effective. And someone, I can't remember which photographer said it, but he said like photography is half taking the image and half a psychologist, and it's about, you know, making them kind of comfortable in the situation.
This is Picnic. This is Mr. Nick Bannister, our incredible illustrator who does all the hard work, really, doesn't he, Drew? I mean, compared to you and me.
Well, mate, let's face it, he makes us look good week after week after week.
Yeah.
That's got to be hard work for anyone.
So I have to say a very short thank you. I mean, most of the time, obviously, when the food gets passed through the cage, it's, you know, it's good and everything, but being let out, it's nice to feel the sunlight, be it a bulb in my room.
Right. So if by the time this episode goes out, we haven't been investigated by some sort of like human rights movement, then we'll be very lucky. But no, Nick is, of course, our illustrator, affectionately known as Picnic. But rather than trying to explain all the other things you do, the simplest way, as we do with all our amazing guests, is get you to tell the lovely listeners and viewers exactly who you are and what you do. So over to you, Picnic. Tell people what you're really about.
Oh, fantastic. Obviously, as they've explained, my name is Nick. In terms of what I do a lot of graphic design and illustration, and I just, in the last 3 years or so, I've just passed my degree in illustration. And yeah, I'm just mainly doing on the side commission work, and that includes just, you know, friends and family, other companies, film studios sometimes even, just branching out into whatever people need. I'm there to draw it.
You also have a rather special connection to what's probably considered the biggest, if not one of the biggest franchises in the film world. And people I know will want to hear about this. So would you mind giving us a bit more information about that?
Yes. So when I was at drama school, I wrote to loads of people, I wrote to thousands of people. And one person I always believe, why not aim high? Because if you aim high, you'll get somewhere in between. If you aim down here, you're only going to get from there to there. But if you aim high, you just might get somewhere, you know. So I wrote to Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and all those different people. And I surprisingly got from the big people, if you like, or the people at the top of their game, got letters back. I was like, what? Some of the smaller people I didn't get letters from. But some of the big people I did. Maybe everyone's not writing to them because they think they're so big and so unattainable that's the reason why. I don't know. But anyway, I got a letter back from George Lucas, and I said it in my letter. I said to him, if you ever think about doing any more Star Wars movies, then I would love to be involved, you know, in any way, shape or form. You know, I'll play a bit of dust on a TIE fighter, if you like. He wrote back and said, and this was about, I think, 93, he wrote back and said, we are actually looking at doing some new Star Wars movies. I thought, wow, I haven't heard that on the grapevine. So I wrote back again and said, right, here's my show reel, here's my stuff and what have you. And he said, well, do get in contact, you know, when you hear about the casting, etc. So I was all excited. And then I wrote again, and then one particular day I got a phone call from my agent and said, you have a casting at, I think it was Ealing Studios in 1 hour. And I'm like, oh, blimey, I don't know if I can get there on time. And I said, well, I don't know, but it might be tricky to get there in an hour. They said, it's for Star Wars. I went, I'm there.
Yeah.
I don't know how many speed cameras I went through, but I got there. And I walked into a room and there was George Lucas. Wow. And I was like, oh my God. And I did a reading for them and what have you. And he said, how would you like to be Obi-Wan Kenobi's double in Star Wars? And I went, yeah. So I literally went from an hour from finding out the audition to getting the role. So I played Obi-Wan Kenobi's double. But I also, on set, ended up doing Poggle the Lesser. I played half the Imperial clone troopers at the time. In fact, there's one scene where Samuel Jackson in episode 2 jumps off a I'm never very good at remembering what these things are called. All the fans do. They come, and when we do signings, all the fans remember everything. They know more about it than I do. Jumped off one of these sort of transporter military things, and there's about, I think, 8 clone troopers around him at the time. I'm every single clone trooper. Every single one. Yeah. Being doubled up so many times. And then I was also a female sort of C-3PO at one point. And I read in for loads of characters, for the actors to respond to and things like that. So I did loads of that, and just basically was just on set all the time. Absolutely loved it. Never went back to the green room. In fact, I don't even know what the green room looked like, because I just spent my whole time sat behind George Lucas and was there ready to do whatever he needs me to do. And I learned so much in all those months of working on it, and how he worked, how the whole thing worked. I went and asked questions. I was probably quite annoying, really, but I'd go to the crew and go, how's that work? And what's that? And it was just such an immense education, the whole thing. Absolutely brilliant. Met some most amazing people. Obviously, Ewan McGregor and Natalie Portman and Samuel Jackson and of course the great Christopher Lee, and had a scene with him, a couple of scenes with him, and he was just hilarious, absolutely hilarious, and very funny, very complimentary, and very, very supportive. He was absolutely brilliant. And it was just the most incredible experience. And at the time, it was doing, the prequels, it was breaking new technology. It was the first time those cameras had ever been used. It was, and a lot of it was green screen and blue screen. I suppose because my theatre background, I found it not too difficult, because you just imagine what's around you, because you literally were in a blue box, and half the time you had no idea what planet you were on, let alone
literally
what was flying around you or anything else. No clue. Yeah. And the only reference points you have might be someone with a stick with a ping pong ball on the end of it, just moving across, so that you knew where to look. That was it. That was literally it.
Was there a lot that shocked you, or did it just all sort of come together and you could almost predict some of the craziness?
I think the challenge with Jack is that he thought everyone was lovely. So each time I said, well, tell me what they were like, he'd go, oh, they were lovely. I'm like, okay. Really? No, but they really were. They were really lovely. And I said, how else would you describe them? So the thing is, he had such a big heart. And so I think the shocking things, we're used to thinking of shocking as excess. And yes, he did have excess. But so also some of the shocking things were like, he would say when he was for the Oscar ceremony, he was asked to sing a song with Frank Sinatra. Wow. And he went, fuck it, I don't want to do that. And his agent said, no, Jack, it's the Oscars. It's Frank Sinatra, you're going to sing the song. And he was like, really don't want to do that. And so he goes to great lengths to get out of singing this song. Which involved a sort of sombrero and messing up he thought, well, if I mess it up, they'll think, well, he can't do it, he's rubbish. We'll not have him. And so I think almost those are the things that I find quite shocking, because I think, you have, if you have to do it, you have to do it. Less so than that I drank 3 bottles of vodka and I was dying. That's because in some respects, I think we hear those stories a lot about celebrities and we kind of understand those pressures. What I think is interesting, as you say, you talked about child stars, is the fact that if you put a child in the business. So I think if any of us 3, I don't know, making an assumption, if any of us 3 were asked to sing with Frank Sinatra, was he dead? He is, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, they won't be him then. But someone like Frank Sinatra we'd all go, yeah, absolutely.
Turning down the chance to perform with Sinatra. I mean, only someone like Jack Wilde would or could have done that.
Yeah, he was quite the character. and so beautifully remembered by his wife Claire. I mean, she'll definitely have more stories about him, mate. So we're going to have to get her back on the podcast in the future.
Oh, for sure, mate, for sure. And speaking of the future, we've got more amazing guests coming up in season 8.
Yes, we have, buddy. But right now, rather than thinking about that, we have a more pressing engagement.
Or you mean getting back to the best bits of this season?
No, I actually meant topping up my beer.
Which is a good point. Yeah, I could do that too.
Right, I am refilled and ready to go.
Me too. Let's see what's up next.
I'm the kind of person that if I dedicate myself to someone, I go and do it, and I do it, and I do it hard. So if I went and did any other job, even if it's working in Tesco's, I'll be the best fucking cashier they've ever had. And that's just the way I would like to, you know what I mean? That is it. My life is like, I wouldn't be looking at the numbers. I'm like, yeah, that's £45, darling. All right. Got a club card? Yes, zing. You know, I'll just be in the game. And so I needed something to keep me in this industry. And doing so is actually probably been the turning point in my career, because I'm seeing the industry from inside out and I'm getting the first dibs on a lot of opportunities. I don't represent myself anymore, but it gave me the resurgence and the birth and the understanding of, okay, this is where I was going wrong. I was relying on my talent and thinking that I was just good enough to be there, and not realizing that I didn't have enough problems or enough flaws or enough quirks or boxes ticked to actually fit in any molds. Not that I came fat on purpose, but becoming fat was the turning point. But running the agency now is my lifeline. It's when I'm not acting, I hit depression if I'm not working a lot, because I'm used to it. My ADHD and my ego, I fall. Like my highs and lows used to be rapid. And I think with the agency, I'm constantly going. And I'm always busy anyway. And if I'm not doing that, I'm writing. If I'm not writing, I'm talking to someone about creating something. And I've just always been that kind of person that has to have something to go. And it blossomed into a magical thing. Where the agency is now is not just thanks to myself. It's thanks to a lot of my clients that have stood by me the whole way. And a lot of them have been there for my 6 years. A lot of them started from the beginning. And then most of my friends that I've met along the way, people that I've worked with, that I've met on sets from being an agent, talking to them on that side of things, and then going, oh, my agent, blah, blah, blah. And I can defend their agent or whatever that may be, but I can give inside advice. And having that insider's view as an actor, I'm guiding people and going, don't make the mistakes I made. Don't do what I did. Work around this, and this is what you need to do, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm helping people achieve what I wish I achieved at their age. And I think I would have been a lot further in my career if I had someone like myself guiding me. So I can't take all the credit, because I think they make my life easier, but they also the agency saved my life in some ways.
Amazing.
Oh man, why am I crying? Shit.
Oh mate, that was beautiful.
Here's the thing. I met Drew 100 years ago, wasn't it, Drew?
It was a long while ago.
It was my first professional role. So you were my entree into the business, and then 30 years later or something.
There we are again.
So there's two possible reasons there that I can see. It's either A, you didn't spend much time with him, so he wasn't able to put you off the profession, or B, you were like, well, if he can do it, it's easy. I'll do it even better. That's the only possible outcomes I can see there.
Or C, he was absolutely brilliant, and I adore him.
Now, look, Claire, we try and stay honest as possible on this podcast. The viewers are just not going to believe that. I'm joking, of course. Drew's been my partner in crime for a good few years now as well. So yeah, but anyway, I guess rather than Drew explaining and me trying to guess at things that I've obviously heard about, the best way to start off, Claire, can you give our lovely viewers and listeners a bit of an intro to yourself about your experiences in the industry and what you do, please?
Yes. So that's a big question. So I started in weekly rep with Drew. Was it 30 years ago? I really can't remember. Something like
getting on for that. Yeah.
or 20 years, whatever.
Well,
And it was weekly rep for Charles Vance Productions. And it was the most amazing experience. And I'm thinking, because you can't do weekly rep in the way that we did it then. And I did learn so much. It was just such a joyous experience. And then Charles, for people who don't know him, was this rather, words aren't enough to describe him, but he was the last of the actor managers, impresario, and he took me under his wing, which was a mixed blessing. And then I worked for him, did rep seasons. He introduced me to my husband, Jack Wilde. So that was an amazing experience. And then I've kept working. And then 30 years later, Drew asked me back. So I don't know why it took you so long, Drew, to invite me into your fold. Where I see Drew now, as I was saying this to him when we were working at Christmas, as an actor manager. I just think it's really interesting that you are, because you had some young actors in that, didn't you?
Yeah.
You were starting out in the profession, some straight out of drama school, and you're helping develop their careers. So, which I think is fantastic, because I think that that metaphorical arm around actors isn't there for a lot of people.
It's just about trying to take the blinkers off and think outside the norm. So, the classic thing that everyone does is when they're casting, say, Alice in Wonderland, they look for a blonde-haired girl to play Alice. Well, if you actually look at the research and go back, Alice actually had black hair. She didn't have blonde hair. It was only Disney that gave her blonde hair. So we tend to think of these things in a certain way. And what you have to do is almost look at it completely fresh. It's the same thing with Romeo and Juliet, the famous balcony scene, which doesn't actually exist, because there is no balcony scene in Romeo and Juliet. There's no mention in all of Shakespeare's 37 plays of a balcony. Doesn't exist. In fact, in Elizabethan England, they didn't have balconies. So therefore, he wouldn't have known them. And the line says, "What light through yonder window breaks?" So she's looking out of a window. She's not looking out of a balcony. But, for whatever reason, we've now know that as the balcony scene. And that's what we think all the time. But that's just not the case.
incredible.
So, yeah, it's about sort of taking away our perceptions, if you like, or preconceived ideas about how things should be done, and looking at them with fresh eyes and trying to forget what's been done before, but look at it new, if you like. And that's what's exciting.
I mean, it does. And we've spoke about it briefly in the past, Sam and I. It has its own very unique, shall we say, aspects. I mean, least of all, or the weather, but there are other. You do have to be incredibly fit and dedicated for that kind of work, don't you?
Yeah, it's something where literally over the years I've done it now, I've realized that my vocal capacity has increased considerably, because you first go out there and you see a crowd of about 300 people stretched out on lawns miles into the distance, and you think, I don't have a microphone. How am I gonna reach those people? But then you learn over time that it's not shouting like that. It's you just build up the muscles, but it's a tough job. It's driving all day, driving to places you've no idea where you're really going, and it's performing in venues that you've never come across before, and just having to adapt in that situation. But it's very fun. It's very, very fun.
Yeah, maybe we're, the Drewling Samantics and Nick Bannister are turning it round in the podcast world. There's our claim to fame. You are our secret weapon, mate.
No, I really do appreciate it. Thank you, because I enjoy it.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. I enjoy doing it. It's a lot of fun for me. Like that. But that's just comes with any sort of art. Like, I enjoy having the kind of motivation to do it. And if it gets me up on my tablet 3 times a week, so I'm not complaining at all. But I just enjoy the work. It's brilliant. But yeah, I mean, like you were saying, I mean, it's I mean, the same with any art form. The good thing is when you have the freedom to design something that can entice someone in, it's that's where the creativity shines, because you can almost create a story in one image, and you know that's where people go, oh, actually, I do kind of want to see that, or I do want to listen to that, because I'm intrigued to know more, and that's the kind of thing that I want to do, and that's the kind of thing I want to bring back almost.
And I think that is literally how it works for us as a team. At the end of the day, Drew and I always try and make entertaining content that people want to listen to, want to watch, and want to be involved in, and we want them to keep coming back. But from the perspective of people who are new and perhaps aren't necessarily looking for a podcast, or people who have dipped in and out, having a visual medium like the incredible artwork that you produce for us, it's that constant reminder. And equally, it's, as you say, I want to know more. It's that enticing little element that, and we're giving away our secrets now. You're going to be bombarded by other podcasts going, we want you as well. So no, he's ours. We're going to put him back in his cave in a minute, and no one else is having him. But I think it's just, it's made a huge difference from our perspective. We're obviously massively grateful for everything you do. But equally, we work as a great team, and I'm sure that all our wonderful listeners and viewers will agree that the artwork is just as important as me and this old git turning up each week and making some noise. So,
I mean, you know, I hope that I've been able to capture the spirit of it, because, like, you know, I listen each week and I have a fantastic time listening, and I hope that I've been able to capture that and entice more people in for it.
That's the plan.
I've also been able to remove some of my wrinkles, mate. So that's always, you know, that's you know, that's an uber bonus
can
for
only
me.
do so much. At the end of the day, you need to turn into a cartoon to really.
I have not had any requests to remove any wrinkles.
No, you've just been very kind and gone, I'll take that out.
Yeah, I'll do it on your behalf. Nick,
I do remember there was, do you remember, sorry, Sam, I was going to say, I remember there was a very interesting conversation we all three of us had one night regarding shading. There was,
yeah, oh God.
Was one of us like, could we have a little bit less shading, or maybe a little bit more shading? It was, and there was a lovely moment where he was like, are we just being a bit too bloody vain here? You know, just let the man get on with obviously what he's very good at.
I think that the thing that made me laugh at the time, because I mean there are certain things, like obviously that come up where you kind of go back to the images, and things you'll notice at the time, you'll be like, oh, that's fantastic, you know, I'm going to send it off, there's going to be no changes to that. And then I think the best one that came back was when, okay, well, look, it's really good, and the spotlight you have on this person is fantastic, however it does look as if he's pissed himself.
I remember that one. Yeah.
And then you kind of look back going, oh God, yeah, it does.
Oh yeah, it does. Yes, yeah.
I can't remember who it was, but
no, that's probably best not to go into too much detail. You run a poetry competition, and you oversee that, and
yes.
record entrants and winners of that. Tell us a bit about that, because that is something I know nothing about.
Yes, we're in our third year of this now. And I love it. I love poetry and reading great poetry. And it's called the EHP Barnard Competition Poetry Prize. It's named after a good friend, sadly no longer with us, but when she passed away, she left a book of her own poems and memories. And she was a good friend to me and my family, and it's dedicated to her. And so this is our third year. The first year, it's always themed. The first year was themed around honour. The second year was themed around birth, and this year the theme is change, and it is for poems up to 400 words, and that includes spoken word. We like spoken word poems as well, so poems and spoken word up to 400 words. And what we offer as a prize every year, there's 3 prizes, is as well as a cash prize, first, second, third. We also produce a poem video, which is read by a professional actor. And the first year we had an Irish chap called Richard Tyner, and he read a lovely poem by Maya Daguerre Pitt called Timelines. And the second year, the winning poem was called Peanut, and that was read by a wonderful actor called Verona Shard. and this year we're in the submissions phase, so we don't know who's going to win yet. And I usually pick the actor after I know what the poem is, so it all ties in nicely. So that's where we are, and the submissions window is open. It costs £2 to enter. First prize is £100, second prize 75, third prize 50, and you also get the poem video as well to help you promote your work. And it is judged by a poet called Sarah Smith, who's based in Reading, and she won. She's done it for 3 years now, and she's superb, very sensitive poet herself, but also really good at finding what makes good poetry. And she won Reading's Grand Slam last year, and she's also a National Slam finalist. So and the poems we get in are just beautiful, and I like to read them all anyway. It's part of the joy for me to be running the competition, and I sit at my PC and I have to take a break sometimes because they're so moving. They're really personal to people's circumstances, and it's a real pleasure to do it. So it's.
Well, I think my favorite anyway was on the set of Star Wars, and I was playing Poggle the Lesser that particular day, which is a sort of, I describe him as a cockroach sort of character, and sometimes had to do it in the Poggle voice, and sometimes I had to do it in English so that Christopher Lee could understand what I was saying. And I had this little disc thing, was probably like a little sort of flying saucer, which was the Death Star plans, and it was the big reveal of the building the Death Star and all this sort of thing. So it was quite an important scene, and I had to take it and I had to walk around this imaginary round table, which obviously wasn't there, but also I had to step over all these wires that were connected on the other side of the table to these creatures, which had animatronics in them, and they had wires connecting to the different parts of their faces, etc. So you had to be really careful, because if you stood on one of those wires, then they would sort of go into spasm like this, what have you. So I had to navigate all these wires to get round, hand this thing over to Christopher Lee and say, the Jedi must not find out about our plans for the ultimate weapon, otherwise we're doomed, like this. And that was the scene. Well, there was a lot of technical stuff obviously going on. We did a lot of rehearsals, etc. And while I was there, I happened to say to the prop guy who handed me these Death Star plans, I said, well, it's amazing, isn't it? You know what these guys do. I said, I'm in awe. I said, they've created this sort of plastic thing, and they've got a little light inside, and someone had to design it and make it and create it, and the work that goes into that is just awe-inspiring. Well, the prop guy started laughing, and both myself and Christopher Lee said, well, what's so funny? What we missed? And he said, well, actually, he said, yesterday we forgot all about the Death Star plans. And he said, we hadn't made anything. So we nipped into Halfords, and it's actually just basically a £1 car air freshener from Halfords. We've taken out the air freshener bit and just put a little red light in it, and that's it. So we came to the next scene. And instead of saying my lines, because we were rehearsing it just over and over again, and no one was recording, I handed them to Christopher Lee, and I just said, there we go, sire, something to freshen the whole galaxy with. And he wet himself, and he couldn't stop laughing all day. And I would come across, do the line to him in recordings, and he couldn't get the line out. He was absolutely hysterics, and it took an entire day to film that scene. So I must have cost Lucasfilm a lot of money that day. Very unprofessional, but it was funny.
But I think if you stay present and curious about life, it is the way. When Jack died, I remember thinking, of course, it was, it's horror. But I just remember saying to myself, breathe to the next minute. Just breathe to the next minute. And that stay in this, in this minute, and once that minute's done, there'll be another minute. And I think there's something about staying ever present not looking too far back, not looking too far forward. And that helps with all things, I think. It helps my son, it helped getting through Jack. So if I had any secret, there's somebody called Spinoza, who is, I think, an old philosopher.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Oh, Drew, you're so academic.
No,
You're so erudite.
no, I just heard the name. I don't know much about him. But
well, I only know one more thing than that. But he said, true happiness is living in this moment. And I think that's, and I know we have a sort of mindfulness movement now. And I truly believe that this moment, if we can connect and stay in this moment, and each successive moment, that's a place that you can pursue to true happiness.
I don't see. I've been thinking about so many, and I have so many weird experiences. But I struggle to find the funny in a lot of my experiences because I'm always just having fun when I'm on set, and we're always laughing, we're always messing about. I think there's always going to be the one that stands out for me. It's when I was doing the cruise ships. I was playing Sammy Davis Jr. in the Rat Pack show, and I was brought in as a stand-in. It's amazing because, like, literally, he lived first class on a cruise ship for a week. And you just perform 2 days in that whole week. So you just live on the cruise ship. It's absolutely fantastic. But you come off that show, and I felt like Sammy, like, because 90% of the people on the ship are old, over 70, say, and old enough to know who he is. And you'd come off, and the stuff that would be said to me, like it was bucket list stuff. And I was in the bar one night, and this woman was like, we were having a drink and we were having a mess about, and we had to play a few games on the roulette and different things. And this woman come over to me and went, oh, "I loved your performance tonight." I was like, "Thank you so much." And she's like, "Yeah, just the way you really like you move like it, don't you?" And I was like, yeah, I guess I've watched these videos and stuff, and she, next on my life, and I'm sitting on the stool. Her hand was that far away from my nutsack, and she was literally just caressing the inside of my leg. And I'm looking at her, and guys, when I say she's knocking on 90, about 85, like, lovely lady. I'm sure 60 years before she would have been a stunner. But for me, I don't really look. I don't want to nut the dust. You know when you don't want to nut the dust off that pussy. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of want to.
Wow.
She said it's always been Sammy was always one of her favourites. She was American as well. She's like, it's always one of my favourites, and I've always wanted to see what it'd like to be with a black man. And I was like, "Oh, you've never been with a black man?" She's like, "Oh, no. I was with my husband for when we was 17, and he's my only lover and he's the only person I've been with." And I was like, "Oh, so is your husband here now?" I was like, "Yeah, no, I've sent him to bed so I can come and talk to you." I was like, "What?" So she literally I felt she'd had this conversation with her husband, like, "Okay, look, it's on my bucket list. I haven't got long left." Because at the time I looked like Sammy, I had the skinny ass face and that, and she's like, "He looks so much like Sammy, and if you see here, Gavin, he's number 4. So I want him to nut the dust off my pussy." And it got it got a bit intense. It got to the point where kind of no wasn't going to be the answer. And like, one of the guys I was doing the show with had to kind of step in, and he was out chatting, having a thing, and she put like her arm around me, and she's obviously had a few sherries, and she kept kissing my face, and I went to go, and she had a vice grip on the arm, and she just looked at me like, "You ain't getting out of this." And it was one of the funniest and scariest moments of my life, because I had to actually take a second and go, "Okay, Reis, you're gonna have to get through this, because you're gonna have to just fuck her and just make her life." But you know what? I'd found out the day before that every ship has morgues on it because so many people die, and I just couldn't get the vision out of my head of what happened if I just wake up in the morning and she's dead. How do I explain that to everyone? So yeah, I contemplated it for about 5 seconds, and then I realised that I just didn't want to carry a dead body out my room. So I thought I'd let her go on the way with a kiss on the cheek and wished her all the best. yeah, that's one of the craziest moments of my career. It was enlightening, to say the least.
Brilliant.
I mean, I almost thought beforehand of saying, do you know what? I know what Reis is like. I know some of his stories. Maybe we shouldn't ask him for an anecdote at the end. And to be honest with you, I'm still not sure if I feel that way or not.
I love that.
Wow. Certainly one that will live with you for a long time.
I've got pictures in my head that I don't want, so I'm going to have to go and...
Yeah, I've still got the pictures.
Yeah.
The worst thing is that you're actually doing like, you know, when you see your life flash before your eyes. I saw the whole night flash before my eyes. I went, nope, don't want to live that.
No. Wow. Just when you thought we might wrap up with a lovely positive statement from Claire, boom, in comes Reis Daniel with a story to shock everyone.
I mean, he lured us into a false sense of security at the start of the second half with his really passionate and moving speech, and then brings us wallop right back down to earth again with his granny girlfriend story.
Oh, true. Either way, it's not one that anyone's going to forget in a hurry. And actually, I think that's probably a good way to look back at this entire season, really. Many, many memorable moments and an almost endless supply of entertainment.
Yeah, brilliantly put, mate. Well done.
Yeah, thanks, Drew. So, what next?
Well, I reckon we come back next week and we do it all again, only this time with the best bits of us.
That sounds good to me, mate. So, we will see everyone next week. Cheers, all.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed this special highlights episode of Drewling Samantics.
If you have, then make sure you go and watch all our previous episodes in full for even more fun and interesting content. Please consider subscribing to our channel too, and you'll get notified every time a new video is released.
Don't forget we're also available as audio only. Just search Drewling Samantics in any good podcast app. And we'd love your support on social media as well. We're on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and all our links and handles are on screen now.
We love welcoming new followers and subscribers, so please share with your family and friends, and we'll be eternally grateful. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.